Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today we are going to attempt Cambridge IGCSE Chemistry. It's paper 20620 and variant 2 October-November 2024. Let's move to the question number 1. The oxygen melts at minus 290 degrees Celsius and boils at 183 degrees Celsius. Okay. So if you see, so we got a range for, and what they are asking, at which temperature is oxygen is liquid. So we got one range that minus 219 degrees Celsius is the melting point. Then we have minus 183 degrees Celsius is the boiling point. So it means below melting point, the oxygen is solid. Between melting and boiling point, the oxygen is liquid. And above boiling point, it's a gas. So from minus 219 till minus 183, the temperature which lies in between this is the temperature where oxygen is liquid. So if you see minus 225, it is obviously going to be over here. So it's a solid. A is wrong. Minus 189, so minus 200 and minus 189 is going to be over here. So it seems correct. Minus 175 and minus 25. So minus 75 and 25 degrees. Both is going to be on above the boiling point. So C and D both goes wrong. So we are left with only option B. So B is the correct answer. Is this clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, MCQ number 2, the pressure of a sample of a gas is decreased, the temperature is kept constant. Which describes the effect of the part on the particle. So what we did, we lowered the pressure decreased, and temperature constant. So if the temperature is constant, do it affect the speed of the particles? Yes.
Yes.
We are not changing the temperature. So does the speed of the particle changes? They are going to move with the same. The movement of the particles would be the same if there is a same temperature. So it means over here mentioning the slower movement makes A and B goes wrong, right? Because when the temperature is constant, so there will be no change in the movement of the particles. Okay, is this clear? So that is no
Yes.
change in the speed. So it's going to be either C or D. We have decreased the pressure. When the pressure is decreased, what happens to the particles? Particles
There is less collision.
come closer or goes further away?
Further away.
Further away. When they are further away, then what is going to happen? They are going to collide less often, right? They are not going to collide with the more force because the temperature is same, so there would be no force between the particles. So they are going to collide less often. So we have excluded the D as well. So the last option that we are left with C. So just C is the correct answer. Now MCQ number 3. Rubidium has two isotopes, okay, rubidium 85 and rubidium 87. Which statement explains why both isotopes have the same chemical properties? Okay, they have the same number of protons. So same number of protons is their physical property because protons are in the nucleus. They are not going to express or impact on any chemical property. They have a same electronic configuration. Yes, because if they have a same electronic configuration, the same number of electrons in the each shell is going to impact their chemical property. So B seems correct. They have a different number of neutrons. So that means this is their physical property, which is different. And they have a different mass number. So again, this is their physical property, which is different. So B is the correct answer. The chemical properties depends upon the electronic configuration. Now, MCQ number 4. Which pair of elements react to form a compound with a strong attraction between oppositely charged ions? So it means when we are talking about attraction between oppositely charged ions, it means they are talking about ionic bond. Okay. So carbon and bromine are not going to form any ionic compound, right? Carbon and nitrogen, no. Sodium and potassium. So sodium is positive and potassium is negative, is also a positive. So they are going to form the alloy, basically not a compound. So D goes wrong. Sodium and oxygen. So sodium becomes Na positive and oxygen become O2 negative. So oppositely charged ions. So C is the correct answer because C is the one in which the compound formed by which have the positive ion and the negative ion both. And carbon and nitrogen and carbon bromine in A and B doesn't forms ions. And in the D, there the both are the positive both are the positive ion. We don't have oppositely charged ions. Now, MCQ number 5. Four substances P, Q, R, and S are described. Okay. P is diatomic. Q is a good conductor of electricity when solid and when molten. So it means it's a metal. R is a silver solid with a very high melting point. Okay. S reacts with the oxygen to form brown gas. Which substances are metal? Okay. So what we know that obviously P is not a metal, right? And if P is not a metal, then A and B goes wrong. Is this clear to all of you? Okay. Now, Q is a good conductor of electricity, so Q is a metal, right? And Q is not here, so D goes wrong. So see, that's how we excluded the ones which are wrong, so we are ended up on the correct answer. So C is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 6. Which diagram shows the covalent compounding in a molecule of carbon dioxide? So if you recall, carbon can form four covalent bonds because carbon has a four electrons in its outermost shell, right? So carbon form four bonds. So in carbon dioxide, there is a double bond between one oxygen and there is a double bond between another oxygen. So it's C. It means A, B, and D are incorrect. Now, MCQ number 7. The bonding structure and the melting point of sodium chloride and sulfur dichloride are shown. Okay. So one is a so if you see, okay, it's a giant and simple molecular ionic and covalent. Their names and their melting points are all are given. What does sulfur dichloride? Why does sulfur dichloride has a lower melting point than sodium chloride? Okay, the covalent compound. So it is because they have a weaker forces between the molecules, right? So the covalent compound and the sulfur dichloride are weaker. No, the covalent bonds doesn't affect the melting and the boiling point. That's what we have already discussed. The covalent bonds in the sulfur dichloride are weaker. Again, it's wrong. The attractive forces between the molecules in sulfur dichloride are weaker. Yes, that is correct. Then the attractive forces between the molecules in sodium chloride. Yes. So there are in sodium chloride, there are no molecules. So C goes wrong. The attractive forces between the molecules in sulfur dichloride are weaker than the ionic bonds in the sodium chloride. Yes, it is. So only the D statement is correct. Now, MCQ number 8. Diamond and graphite have a giant covalent structures of carbon atom. Which statement describes graphite? Okay. It has a strong, rigid three-dimensional structure. No, it's not rigid. It's flexible. So A is not answer because rigid is wrong. It has a four strong covalent bonds. No, we know that graphite doesn't. Carbon has no four covalent bonds. Each carbon is forming three covalent bonds. So option B is wrong. It has a layers. which can slide over each other. Yes, that's what graphite is. It has no delocalized electron. That is wrong. Graphite do have delocalized electron. So A, B, and D are wrong, and C is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 9. Which law explains the malleability and electrical conductivity of a solid metal? Okay. So first, let's have a look on malleability. Delocalized electrons can move freely. No, that is not malleability. Delocalized electrons, that is not malleability. Raw positive ions can slide over each other. Yeah, so that is malleability. Now, electrical conductivity. Positive ions can move. No, positive ions can't move. Electrical conductivity is due to the delocalized electrons can move freely through the structure. So option C is correct. A, B, and D are excluded because they were wrong. Now, MCQ number 10. The equation for the decomposition of ammonium carbonate is shown. Okay. And we have the MR of ammonium carbonate. The total volume of gas produced is 360 centimeter cube at RTP. Which mass of ammonium carbonate is decomposed? Okay. So we can do by two ways. See, that is the mass of ammonium carbonate and how many moles of gases are producing. There are 3 moles of gases are producing. So if I make the ratio, 3 moles of gases means if they have taken the volume. So we can say over here that 3 times 24,000 centimeter cube of gas is produced when 96 grams of ammonium carbonate has been heated. Is this understandable to all of you? Yes?
Yes.
So what we did, this is a 1 mole, so mass of 1 mole is its MR. And there are 3 moles of gases, and we know each gas occupies 24 dm cube or 24,000 centimeter cube. So now, if 360 centimeter cube of gases has been formed, then how much mass of this? So if value of X is going to be 96 times 360 over 3 times 24,000. So 3 times 120, 120 times 2,000. No. 200. Yes, can anyone solve it in the calculator and tell me the value quickly?
Here I'm getting 0.48.
0.48. Okay, so 0.48 grams. So which is B? It means A, C, and D are wrong, and B is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 11. What is the empirical formula of a compound that contains 3.66 gram of hydrogen, 37.8 gram of phosphorus, and 58.5 gram of oxygen? Okay, so they have given you the masses and the asking for the empirical formula. So we have a hydrogen, we have a phosphorus, and we have a oxygen. Okay. So the mass of hydrogen is 3.66, which is going to be divided by its AR, which is 1. Phosphorus is 37.8, which is going to be divided by its AR. You can find the AR in the periodic table, it's 31. And mass of oxygen, which is 58.5 divided by its AR, which is 16. Can anyone tell me the value? For the first case, it is going to be 33.66. For the second one and the third one, can anyone tell me the value, please?
For the second one is 1.22.
1.22. And for third one, it's 3.66 or something else.
Yes, it
Yes,
is
3.66.
3.565. Yeah.
3.66. So the smallest is 1.22. So we are going to divide all the values with 1.22. So when you divide all the values with that 1.22, so what you will get? 3, 1, 3, which means H3PO3, and that is C. right? So A, B, and D are wrong, and C is the correct answer. I hope it's clear to all of you. MCQ number 12, aqueous copper 2 sulfate is electrolyzed using graphite electrodes, which identifies the product and the observation at each electrode during the electrolysis. Okay. When we are using the graphite electrodes, okay, so at anode, if you recall, the hydroxide ions react forming oxygen, and at cathode, copper ions reacts forming copper metal. So if oxygen is formed, so that is either A or D. So it means B and C goes wrong. Observation, bubbles of a gas, bubble of a gas, and no, electrode doesn't dissolve when there is a graphite electrode, right? So D goes wrong. So we have just, without working on the cathode side, we have just excluded the three options. So we are left with only option A. So the option A is correct. That is A. Okay. So that is how you can save your time. Now MCQ number 13. Molten sodium chloride is electrolyzed using inert electrodes, which shows the products formed at cathode and anode. So if you recall, uh, it's a molten sodium chloride. So at cathode, we will get sodium, and at anode, we will get chlorine. So cathode sodium, that's it. Only D has sodium. So A, B, and C goes wrong. And D is the correct answer. Okay. Now, MCQ number 14, the equation for the formation of ammonia is shown. The reaction pathway diagram for the reaction is shown. Okay. What is the enthalpy change for this reaction? Okay. So see, it's very easy. If you look over here, this much amount of energy is absorbed when the bonds are broken, and this much amount of energy is released when the bonds are formed. So it was bond breaking minus bond forming. So 250 minus 3. Okay, that is energy release. Over here in the formula, yeah, there is a trick. We use the bond energy. So when you are going to go through with this expression, so just use one minus, not two minuses. So when you subtract these two, I think you will get minus 92. Can anyone confirm me?
Yes, yes.
So it's 14B. It means A, C, and D goes wrong, and B is the answer. Remember, when you are given with the bond energies, then you use the formula bond breaking minus bond making, and bond making is always positive. But when this is the case, you are given with the diagrams, the positive and negative signs are there. So just the bond energy absorbed minus energy released. That's it. Put with their the signs mentioned. That's it. No other sign. Okay. Now MCQ number 15. Sulfur dioxide is converted to sulfur trioxide in a contact process. The conditions are 450 degrees Celsius, 200 kilopascal, and vanadium 5 oxide catalyst. Yes. Pishore describes and explains the effect of changing condition on the rate of reaction. Okay. So the condition no catalyst, effect on rate lower, and the activation energy is higher. Yeah, all the things are correct. Yeah, when there is a no catalyst, the effect of rate is lower, right? There would be slower rate and the activation energy is high. Higher pressure, effect on rate is higher, the particles have more. No, the particles doesn't have more kinetic energy because the temperature is same. B goes wrong. Lower temperature, lower rate, the particles collide more frequently. No, particles are going to collide at the same frequency or with the slower speed because there is a lower temperature, lower pressure, the rate would be higher. So it goes wrong. So only option A is correct. Now, MCQ number 16. The hydrogen gas reacts with the iodine gas to form hydrogen iodide in an equilibrium reaction. Okay. They have given you the enthalpy change that is positive, which indicating that the forward reaction is endothermic and the backward reaction is exothermic. Which changes increase the yield of HI. Okay. Adding catalyst. Catalyst doesn't affect the yield. So A and B goes wrong. adding more hydrogen. So when we increase the hydrogen, equilibrium shifts towards the right. Yeah, equilibrium shifts towards the right. So it will increase the yield of HI. So that is correct. Increasing the pressure. If you see 2 moles of gas on reactant side and 2 moles of gas on both product side. So both sides has an equal mole. So increasing pressure does not affect the rate of yield. The equilibrium position remains same. So over here 3 makes C wrong. So it means we are left with only option, that is D. So D is the correct answer. Now MCQ number 17. The equation for the reaction of carbon with carbon dioxide is shown. Okay. Which law identifies carbon atom that is reduced and its change in oxidation number? Okay. So if you see over here, that is 0 and that is -2. The net charge is 0. There are 2 of them, makes it -4. So the carbon is +4. Now over here, the net charge is 0, oxygen is -2 and carbon is +2. So if you see, this changes from 0 to +2, which means it is being oxidized. And this changes from +4 to +2, which means its oxidation number decreases. So this one is reduced. So the atom that is reduced, that is carbon and CO2. Element carbon, these 2 carbons, the carbon which is only C has been oxidized. Is this clear? And it's as if it's reduced, so its oxidation number is changing from +4 to +2. That's what we have identified. Here there is an increase in oxidation number, which means oxidation. So B goes wrong. Oh, sorry, A, C, and D goes wrong. And we are left with only B option. So B is the correct answer. I hope it's understandable till here. Now, MCQ number 18. Aqueous iron 2 sulfate is added to acidified potassium manganate 7. Okay. Okay. Aqueous iron 2 sulfate is added to aqueous potassium manganate 7. The purple color of the potassium manganate disappears. The aqueous potassium iodide is added to acidified potassium dichromate. A dark brown solution forms. Which row identifies the role of iron 2 sulfate and potassium dichromate in these reactions? So we already know that this is an oxidizing agent, right? So if there is a color change, it indicates that iron 2 plus iron 2 sulfate is a reducing agent. Okay. In the same way, we know that potassium iodide is reducing agent and it is used to test the oxidizing agent, and we got the color change, which means that the potassium iodide, potassium dichromate is oxidizing agent. So iron 2 sulfate oxidizing agent, no. We have identified it as a reducing agent. And potassium dichromate we have identified as a oxidizing agent. So mentioning it reducing agent makes C wrong. So we are only left with option D. So D is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 19, which row shows the difference between a weak acid and a strong acid? Okay, so we know weak acid partially dissociates, right? And a strong acid fully dissociated. So A, B, and C are wrong, and D is the correct answer. So if you remember the definition of the weak and the strong acid, you can easily figure out. Now, MCQ number 20. Which substance turns methyl orange red? So it's an acid, right? Acid turns methyl. Aqueous ammonia turns yellow because it's a base. Dilute hydrochloric acid, yes. Sodium hydroxide alkali, so it turns yellow. And distilled water doesn't affect. So A, C, and D goes wrong, and B is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 21, which row describes zinc oxide and calcium oxide? Okay, so if you recall, zinc oxide is amphoteric oxide. So zinc oxide amphoteric, A and B goes wrong. Calcium oxide basic. Acidic are non-metal oxide. So excluding A, B, and C, we are left with option D. So option D is correct answer. Now, MCQ number 22. Which row shows the properties of a transition element? Okay, catalyst, yes. So over here, written no as a catalyst makes C and D goes wrong. Color of their oxide, yes, there shows different color. Electrical conductivity, yes. So mentioning poor electrical conductivity makes option B wrong and A is your correct answer. Now, MCQ number 23. Fluorine is the element at the top of the group 7 of the periodic table. Which statement describes fluorine? Okay. So if it's the top fluorine, then we have a chlorine, then we have a bromine, then we have a iodine, and then we have a astatine. So as we move down, reactivity increases. So it is inert. No, wrong. It is most reactive. It is monoatomic. All are no diatomic. B goes wrong. It's a non-metallic. Yes, it is a solid at room temperature. It's a gas at room temperature in actual. The first two elements are gases. So D goes wrong. So we have excluded the three options. So option C is correct one because it is left. Now, MCQ number 24. When aluminum is placed in dilute hydrochloric acid, there is no reaction. When zinc is placed in dilute hydrochloric acid, bubbles of gas are immediately given off. Which statement correctly explains this observation? So if you recall, there is a aluminium, there is a oxide layer which apparently stopped further reaction. So let's read the options. Aluminium is coated with a layer of aluminium oxide. Yes, that's the reason, might be. We will further assure that the rest of them are wrong or not. Aluminium is more reactive than hydrogen. Yes, it is. So if being this, it must react with the acid. Aluminium is less reactive than zinc. It's wrong. Aluminium is above zinc in the reactivity series. There is a aluminium, then we have a zinc. So aluminium is above. So that is wrong. Zinc is less reactive than hydrogen. No. Hydrogen is, then we have a iron, then we have a tin, then we have a lead, and then we have a hydrogen. So zinc is more reactive than hydrogen. So B, C, and D are not correct. So it means A is the correct answer. Okay. Till here, is this clear to all of you? Yes. Any confusion so far?
No, sir.
Okay. I think my screen is little sticking. Okay. Now MCQ number 25. Which statement about the use of sacrificial protection to prevent iron from rusting are correct? Okay. Number one, a more reactive metal than iron is used as a sacrificial protector because it undergoes reduction. Yeah, that is fine, but not reduction. It goes oxidation before iron. It goes oxidation more quickly than iron, right? So option one is wrong. And if option one is wrong, then A and B goes wrong. Zinc is used as a sacrificial protector because it gains electron more readily than iron. Yes, second statement is correct. And second statement is zinc is because it loses electrons. Sorry. So see, you have to be very careful while reading the statement. So it loses electron. It it loses electron more readily. It undergoes oxidation more readily, right? So statement second is correct, incorrect. So it means C goes wrong, and if C goes wrong, we are only left with option D. So D is the correct answer, right? Now, MCQ number 26, aluminum is extracted from its ore by electrolysis. What is the role of cryolite in this process? Cryolite is used to dissolve aluminum oxide. And when we dissolve it to lower the operating temperature. Yes, that is one reason. To lower the boiling point of bauxite. No, because we know there is no need to turn into it gas. So B goes wrong. To raise the melting. No, it actually lowers the melting point of bauxite. So that's why it turns into a liquid state at a lower temperature. So that's why we are able to operate at a lower temperature to act as a catalyst, not at all. So D is also wrong. So it means we are only left with option A. So option A is correct. Is this clear? My screen.
Yes.
Okay. One minute. Okay, now MCQ number 27. Which law identifies two greenhouse gases and three processes by which they contribute to global warming? So the greenhouse gases are, if you recall, carbon dioxide and methane. So oxygen not a greenhouse gas, oxygen not a greenhouse gas. So we are left with only option A and C. Absorption. Okay. They absorb. Yeah, that is fine. Creation. No, they doesn't undergo creation. Absorption, emission. Yeah. Reflection of thermal energy. So creation makes A goes wrong. So it means C is the correct answer. So they absorb the energy, they emit the energy and reflect the thermal energy towards the earth. Okay. So there is no creation of energy. So that's why A wrong. Now MCQ number 28. Which mixture contains all elements in a typical NPK fertilizer? NPK fertilizer hai. NPK means nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So ammonium nitrate. So it has a nitrogen only. Calcium phosphate. So calcium phosphate. So K is missing, right? There is no potassium. So A goes wrong. Ammonium phosphate. Ammonium has nitrogen, phosphorus has P. Potassium chloride, so K. So all three are there. So B is the correct answer. Potassium nitrate, so K and N are there. Ammonium chloride, so again N. There is no P. So C goes wrong. Potassium carbonate, so C. And ammonium nitrate. So ammonium nitrate has nitrogen, so no P again. So D goes wrong. So the correct answer is B, which can the mixture of ammonium phosphate and potassium chloride has all three fertilizers of NPK, which are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now, MCQ number 29, bromine reacts with butene. Okay. Bromine reacts with butene. Okay. What is the displayed formula of the product of this reaction? So if you recall, butene means that are but means 4 carbon and 2 ene means double bond over here. So when it reacts with bromine, so this double bond goes single bond. So one carbon got bromine and the other carbon got bromine, but these are the carbons which are in the middle. So over here, one carbon getting both the bromines wrong. First and second carbon getting both the bromine wrong. The first and the last carbon getting both the bromine wrong. So we are only left with option C. It is correct. You can see that the second and third carbon getting the bromine. Is this clear to all of you? Now, MCQ number 30, which statement is correct? Okay. Bitumen is used for fuel ships. No, it's for road mapping, for construction of a road. So A is wrong. Coal, natural gas, and oxygen all are fuel. No, oxygen is used to burn the fuel. Oxygen is not a fuel. B goes wrong. Hydrogen is the main constituent of natural gas. No, methane is the main constituent of natural gas. So A, B, and C are wrong. Then it means D is correct. Petroleum is separated into useful substances by fractional distillation. Yes, it is. MCQ number 31. Which statement explains why ethanoic acid is saturated? Okay. It's saturated because there are no carbon-carbon double bond. All the bonds between the carbon are single. The molecule dissociates completely in water, nothing to do with, and it doesn't dissociate completely in water. It dissociates partially in water because it's a weak acid, right? There is a carbon-oxygen double bond in the molecule. Yes, but this doesn't makes it saturated or unsaturated. The carbon-carbon bonds in the molecule is a single bond. Yes, what that is what it makes the ethanoic acid saturated. All carbon hydrogen bonds in the molecule are single bonds, so that's happen in unsaturated as well. Do remember the carbon carbon bonds must be single to a molecule to be a saturated. So C is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 32. Which statement about compounds in the same homologous series is correct? Same homologous series, remember same molecular formula, same general formula, same chemical properties, and difference of CH2 in the very next member. They have the same chemical properties because they have a same number of carbon atoms. No, they don't have a same number of carbon atoms. Methane, ethane, butane, propane. Each member has a different type of carbon, different number of carbon atom. They have a same physical properties. No, not at all. In the compounds having homologous degrees have a general trend in the physical properties. There is a general trend that exhibit. They have a different chemical properties. No, they have a same chemical properties. They have a different physical properties because they have a different number of carbon. Yes, because of when the carbon atoms gets different, so the mass changes, and when the mass changes, the physical properties changes. So yeah, D is the correct answer. And by the way, we have excluded A, B, and C. So obviously we are left with D, so which must be correct. MCQ number 33, which law shows the properties of methane? Okay, methane is a CH4, it's a gas, so it is a hydrocarbon gas, so it's not soluble in water. No, sorry. Yes, soluble in water. No, it's not. That's why, and making it soluble in water, that's makes C and D goes wrong. Okay. Now, room temperature gas. Give a positive test with aqueous bromine. No, because with the aqueous bromine, the carbon-carbon double bond, compounds having carbon-carbon double bond shows the positive test. So B goes wrong. So it means we are left with only option A. So it is correct. Now, MCQ number 34. The table shows two methods to use to make a ethanol. Okay. Fermentation, batch, temperature 35 seconds, pressure 180 increase, sugar can. Okay. Adding steam to ethene, it's a continuous process. Okay. 300 degrees Celsius, 68 atm, acid catalyst, petroleum. Okay. Because we are using ethene. Which statement give an advantage of preparing ethanol by fermentation rather than by adding ethene? So they are asking for the advantage of a fermentation process. Okay. Let's read this. Fermentation takes several days to complete. So is it an advantage? No, not at all. So A goes wrong, right? Little energy is used in fermentation process. Yes. See, the temperature and the pressure are the normal room temperature and pressure. So there is no need to put any specific temperature and pressure. So that's the advantage. The fermentation of glucose from sugar can produces pure ethanol. No, it's not pure. It's a mixture and we have to remove it by distillation or fractional distillation. Fermentation uses non-renewable. No, fermentation uses renewable raw material. So A, B, and D, A, C, and D are wrong. So it means B is the correct answer. Right? Now, MCQ number 35. Which equation represents an addition reaction? So remember in our addition reaction is the one in which the two reactants join to give you one product. So see, two are giving you one. So that can be an addition. Two are there, so that's kind of a substitution. One is there turning into two, so it's a decomposition where the one thing breaks down into two. Again, decomposition or cracking. So C, A, B, C, and D goes wrong, and A is the correct answer because in A there are two reactants which are joining to give you one product. So that's what addition is. Now, MCQ number 36, the structure of part of a polymer is shown. How many amide and ester linkages are included in the structure shown? Okay. So if you see, C double bond is bonded to nitrogen, that is amide, right? C double bond O bonded to nitrogen, that is amide. C double bond O bonded to oxygen, that is ester. So if you see how many amide linkages are there? 2 and 1 ester linkage, right? So A, B, and D goes wrong, and C is your correct answer. Now, MCQ number 37. Which structure represents a part of a protein? Okay. So protein is made from amino acids. So if you break it from here, so see, this one get NH2 and OH. So if this is the monomer, so that is amino acid. So it means A can be answer. But let's see if you break it. Okay, there is no nitrogen over here, so that's B is completely wrong. Okay, and C, if there is oxygen, so it's not an amide, not S. There is no amide link because C double bond O is directly bonded to nitrogen. Now, if you break it from here, this will get OH, this will get OH, this will get H, this will get H. So you are getting one diamine molecule and one dicarboxylic acid molecule. So protein doesn't made it from these. So B, C, and D goes wrong, and we are left with only option A. So A is correct. Is this clear to all of you? Now, MCQ number 38. Which piece of apparatus can only measure a single fixed volume? So that is, if you recall, only the pipettes are the one which measures only fixed volume, because other uh, apparatuses have a scales and we can measure different volumes within the range or within their capacity. So A, B, and C goes wrong, and D is the correct answer. Now, MCQ number 39. Pure solid copper 2 nitrate can be obtained from a mixture of copper 2 nitrate and copper powder. These three stages in the method are listed. Okay, we have added the water and stir it. All nitrates are water soluble, so copper nitrate dissolves. Okay, so on this, copper nitrate gets aqueous and copper solid. Crystallize, filter. Okay, so obviously after this, so that is the step first, then that would be the second, then that would be the third one, right? After these three stages, copper 2 nitrate is washed and dried. What is the correct order of stages X, Y, and Z to obtain pure solid copper 2 nitrate from the mixture? So obviously the first is X, then Y, and then X, then Z, and then Y. That's what we have identified, right? 1, 2, and 3. So A, C, and D goes wrong, and D is the correct answer. Is this clear to all of you? Now, MCQ number 40. Which law describes a test and the observation for the aqueous sulfate ions? Okay. To test the sulfate ions, if you recall, we need barium nitrate or barium chloride. We need a barium ions. Dilute nitric acid? No. Dilute nitric acid and barium nitrate? Yes. Dilute nitric acid, potassium magnate? No. Dilute nitric acid, silver nitrate? No. So, C, and white precipitates are formed whenever there is a sulfate. So only option B is left. So B is the correct answer. So over here, we have completed the one more past paper. I hope it's understandable. So we are going to do few more. And beside this, you can try practicing on your own. And if you find any difficulty, you can WhatsApp me.